I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Ann Emery, who stars as Diana Robichaud in 5 Days at Memorial. Julianne, I am still getting over the really difficult watch of getting through 8 episodes of this series. It's so brilliant and so immersive, visceral. You were actually in it, so I'd just love to know, like, you shot it a year ago, and how do you still feel about your experience of bringing this story to life?
So I really pride myself on leaving work at work if I can. Um, Meaning I don't like to take the scene home with me. And there's there are scenes from 5 days that I can feel right now, like just us starting to talk about it. So I think this one has been kind of impossible for me to walk away from. And you know what? It's a dramatization based on real events, and maybe we're not supposed to easily be able to walk away from everything. I hope that it leaves a bit of a mark on our audience as well, because I'd like to see real change in our world come from it. We're going to see natural disasters and collective crises like the pandemic happen more frequently and more ferociously. It's not going to let up, and we need to really decide who we want to be together as a society. Like, how do we show up for each other in those moments? And 5 days really points out a lot of failings on that front.
It really does. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, it just reminds us of what's happened since, the pandemic, as you mentioned. Hurricane Ian has just devastated
Yeah.
Florida. This stuff's not going away. And so I hope,
And the flooding, we've had a ton of flooding. Australia's had a lot of
yeah,
flooding.
just
We've had a lot of
horrible.
fire. California and Australia both have fires in common. Like we've had, we're not, we've had flooding in places like Kentucky, like places where you just don't expect that kind of natural disaster to be happening. And we
Mm.
really need to decide who we want to be as a society together. I know I am hoping 5 days is a conversation starter. And we're walking up on elections in the US right now.
Yeah.
And look, there were failures on all sides of the political spectrum during Katrina. But I hope that it points out to people that their local elections matter as much as their state elections matter as much as their federal elections. I hope we can all pay more attention to that. Who is leading us in these moments becomes life and death.
Yeah. Apart from the big picture stuff, uh when you think back on your time of preparing for the shoot and then being in production, I always wonder, like, what most surprised you about what you learned about, apart from the response, what you learned about what these people were actually going through at hospital? Because I have to admit, I didn't really know much about what happened at the morning.
Well, because what we see on the news is spectacular, right? We see the action parts of it, the wind and the rain and the reporter standing out and like you think they're and then because the flooding of Katrina was not all that exciting visually for the news, they started talking about looting, but I had no idea what was particularly happening inside hospitals. I had zero awareness of that. And I have healthcare workers in my own family, and I'm ashamed that I didn't think, far enough ahead to what that means. But when a community loses resources like fresh water, power, so does the hospital. And we tend to think that if people are in a hospital, they're just automatically taken care of. But if the hospital has no tools or resources to take care of them, then that's not true. And then even your healthcare workers are in danger. So we really do. I mean, we saw this during the pandemic too. We kind of think of our healthcare workers last on the list. I mean, that shifted at some point during the pandemic. We started to sort of appreciate our healthcare workers more, and yet we still abandoned them to a large degree to just take care of the pandemic. And that's, it's not okay. And I think the thing that 5 days does incredibly well is outside of the bigger picture facts is it really gives the audience an opportunity to walk through the emotional and the psychological aspects of that as a single person, right? Like
Yeah.
through the eyes of these individuals. We all kind of anchor a different side of the story. My side of the story at Life Care, um, we felt a big responsibility for the emotional consequences of the story. Like if the audience was going to come with us emotionally, it was going to be through Life Care.
Yeah.
So we really felt that we had to take a deeper dive than any of us have ever taken before. We really felt like we had to go all the way there and then go further. Like John Ridley and Carlton Cuse wanted absolutely every bit of it that we could mine, every aspect of it that we could mine, whether it was on the page written or not. Um, I'm forever grateful for that experience. It was a beautiful group of people to work with, and the work itself was deep, and it leaves a mark, you know, and I hope it leaves a mark for everybody. I hope we don't, I hope we can start to think about individuals in these moments. You know, I
Yeah.
hope we can start to see it more from a personal point of view.
Yeah, from the micro level as opposed to the macro.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
certainly did for me. I admitted to Vera Farmiga and Cherry Jones, two of the stars of the show, the other day that I felt like bringing water and towels to the interview. And I'm like, because they're saying, like we're actors, we were comfortable, it was air conditioned, but I'm like, no, but it was so visceral and real to me, which is a testament to the production and the actors performing it, that I felt like really, really affected by it. And I just wonder, were there moments for you when you were done on the set and you're able to go back to your trailer where it's in your DNA and you can't quite shake off what you've experienced with all these background artists on the day?
Yeah, I can't, I mean, that is another good point. Our background actors had very often were with us for quite a lot of the shoot, because it was all this, 2,000 people stuck in a hospital together. And sometimes they were our only scene partners, and they all so fully committed without the same script and story and resources that we had. And I give them major props for that. What that makes me think of, I would say it's still with me now, but there was a day, there were many days that I took it home with me. If I could make it to the trailer, that was probably when. There was a day where we were shooting something. It was the day we shot the scenes with from episode 4 with Diane, with me and Cherry Jones, and we were talking about the lists, leaving the people purposely off the lists, and I shot that last scene. We're trying to hold it in, and I got in the van to go back to the trailer because our base camp was not right by on location, and I burst into tears, and I felt terribly about it because my driver Farhad was with me the whole time, and he was just beside himself. He was so upset, and I didn't want to upset him. But there was so much of it had built up throughout the day that it had to go somewhere, and it came out before I could, I don't know, before I could push it in until I at least got to the trailer,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I think I don't have regrets about that. I don't like for my work to puke up on other people, in this case, I will say this cast was the joy of my life, and the crew was the most dedicated and invested crew I have ever seen. It felt like they were inside the scenes and the stories with us. So all props to them for creating that space and for diving fully in with us, because they don't have to do that, and they did. And it was important to everybody, every single person on that set. The show was important too. So yeah, it did. I mean, I took it home with me a lot. I mean, there was emotional. Sometimes it's easier when it all comes out in the scene, but when you're trying to, Diane, much like Susan Mulderick, Cherry Jones's character is a leader here. She's the incident commander. She's leading her people, and there's a lot to build underneath. I like to build my characters from the ground up and then put them in the situation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to build that's going on underneath, and then to cap it, to take care of your patients and to be a good leader for your staff and to take care of everybody else. And then we get those little beautiful alone moments where all of that subtext and all of that emotion and all of that life can come out from time to time. And I think John and Carlton did such a beautiful job writing the script, writing those spaces for us to have that. Not everyone trusts those moments without dialogue, and they really,
Yeah.
really did. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to pinpoint one in particular because although the series overall is about Dr. Anna Poe and her journey and what she was accused of doing, and Susan Mulderick, played by Cherry Jones, is the leader in the memorial part of the hospital, Diane Robichaud is so important to the story. And I actually, to be honest, I was so excited to do this interview because I really, really, for some reason, there was this connection that I had with your character because the whole thing's about people being forgotten and about being left behind. And life care, they were an afterthought. And your character is in charge of looking after these people. The moment where Diane and Emmett have that moment where she is basically saying
Mm.
goodbye to him, and Emmett, for people
Mm.
who might remember, is the big guy in the bed who is going to probably
Damon
last back.
Standifer. Damon
Yeah,
Standifer.
what
Yeah.
an incredible performance from him as well. But
Yeah.
that moment killed me. So thanks for that. It was a
It
beautiful,
killed me
beautiful
too.
scene.
I am not recovered right now, but yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. That was the moment where I thought, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. Yes, we want to know about Katrina. Yes, we want to know about the aftermath of when it hit landfall, but this is about these particular people. So that's a real gift to be able to do that. What were your thoughts after or during that scene? Because I think that was the key scene for you.
So I think John Ridley wrote and directed that episode. And he just sets up such a beautiful work environment on set. Damon and we all knew that scene was coming the whole time we were shooting. It was kind of a North Star the whole time we were working, and we really wanted to nail it. But John was smart enough to know that you can't nail a scene like that. So we shot this. The shot started from my office, and then the scene with Gina Isbell, played by Tammy Isbell, where I calm her, and then walking down the hall, and then I would walk into Damon's coverage. It was a very long shot, and then we turned around on my coverage. So building that, I was really proud we were able to do that as a team, like across the board. But I got, by the time we got round to my coverage, everyone was so invested, and we were also, Matthew Davies' set had so enveloped us, and Damon and I were, so John let me sit on the bed, which what you wouldn't normally think would happen. Like it just, everything played out in a way that led to a moment that we did one take on my coverage.
Really?
John put one surprise in there for me that he didn't tell me about ahead of time, but we did the take, and it was absolutely the most naked emotionally I've ever been on screen. And I still remember, I don't know how I walked away from that bed. Like we all took a massive deep dive. And John, I don't know if you know John Ridley very well. He's, very, very tall and lanky, but he doesn't like to be away from set. He doesn't like to be in another room at Video Village. So he carries his little monitor around, and he lays his giant lanky body. He was laying down on the other side of the bed. He wants so much to feel inside the scene. And you do forget that he's there until there's a cut or something, and then he just starts very softly talking to you. And we finished that take, and he came to me and he shook my hand and he said, "I don't think it gets more honest than that." And I said, yeah, I don't either. And he always asked me, he was like, "If you would like more takes, we can absolutely do that." And I said, "If you're happy, sir, I am happy." And we left it at that. So I think we were going for, I don't know, maybe we started the day hoping we nailed the scene, but what we ended with was honest. And if you can be honest in a moment like that, I don't know that you can ask for any more than that. I think that's accomplishing a lot.
That rarely happens, that you're able to really dive into that kind of emotion straight off the bat. Obviously, the production was so great or expert at setting the scene for you all for you to be able to go to those places. I heard the same thing from Cherry and Vera.
Yeah. Look, it also was a set of kindness and respect. Like,
Right.
there's an interesting thing that happens for all of us in our work environments, right? Like when we
Yeah.
have to protect ourselves in our work environment,
Yeah.
it bleeds into whatever work we're doing. And as an actor, particularly on emotional scenes, if you have to protect yourself off set, you spend a couple of takes tearing down that invisible wall so you can get to that emotion. And because the set across the board was such a safe space for all of us, there was none of that. It was very seamless walking into walking from, I don't know, holding into the scene. And for live care, we were on location for it. So holding was in the hospital itself, right? So we were surrounded by it no matter where we were, which I also think contributed in an extraordinary way. Yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted what you were saying.
No, I think that was what you just said is exactly what I was trying to get at, and you said it way better. Because yeah, that's like any place that you work. If the leadership sets the scene from the top, I mean, you can really make magic, and no matter what profession you're in. And that's a
Yes,
real
yes.
testament to John and Carlton, and all of
Well,
them.
group effort can elevate, right?
Yeah,
Like we can, as a group, we can, no matter what we're doing as a group, whether we're, I don't know, playing softball or working in an office or working on a set, as a group, we can get somewhere that we can't get to alone. But your work environment affects how far you can go with that, affects your ability to do that.
so interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found so fascinating, and this is more about making the sausage behind the scenes, but you were also sweaty and like and matted and wet.
Yeah.
And I know that when I'm sweaty and matted and wet, I'm so angry and cranky and miserable, and I just want to go and kind of drop dead. You guys were having to do that the whole time. I learned that this was a very cold set and it wasn't as hot as it appeared.
Cherry quite frequently asked them to turn the AC down or up. Like she was like, it is too cold. We
It's
were
too
all,
cold.
did they tell you, like we had 3 departments that would douse us with water? And they started episode 3, they started with the little pump water things. And
Yeah.
then all of them got the little automated ones where you just pull the thing once and it just wets and it just keeps spewing out water. So I would have so much water on me that they put it on my face. We'd be rolling. And before they said action, I would wipe it away from my eyes like I was coming out of a swimming pool. Like we were just absolutely doused in water all day.
Does
Yeah.
that help? Does that help the misery? Or are you, I mean, it must give you something extra.
I think it's, you know, I think I think looking at your scene partner doused in sweat and
Right.
water and grime like that is because they would also put this stuff on us to make the water bead.
Yeah.
And so we were just grimy all day. All of us were just grimy and soaked. And I think that contributes with Matthew Davies' set. I mean, there's something very real about it. And I really commend, John and Carlton went after that very specifically.
Mm.
And I commend them for it because I think it does a lot to bring the audience inside of it with us. But yeah, it all of it helps, right? Like every department helps. You know, at one point during episode 4, they called me into makeup, and I just looked at my beautiful makeup artist, and I said, I don't. By the time you guys put all that water on me, there's nothing there, right? Like it's all gone. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, am I here as a courtesy? And she was like, yeah. I was like, we don't have to do that. It's okay. Like, no one fought no one fought looking bad. Everybody we all wanted to go further. Like by episode 5, they were putting darker circles under our
Yeah.
eyes. And I didn't hear one peep of any person uh, with a shred of vanity. And I think that helps as well. We're all in it together. We're trying to be respectful and truthful to the situation, to the people who were there, to what they went through, and nothing else really mattered beyond that.
Yeah. I must say, by the last couple of episodes, when the story really focuses on Dr. Anna Poe's law enforcement battle,
Right.
I missed seeing Diane. I wanted to know more about how she got through that. And I just wonder have you heard much from anyone from Life Care since the show is streamed on Apple?
So while we were shooting, we were not in contact with any of the real people. We relied fully on Sherry Fink's brilliant book, and she also opened up her research to us entirely. So she made herself incredibly available to us, and she was incredibly valuable to my preparation. Because I do like to build my characters from a very young age to now so that I can just insert them into the situation. So like, I feel like if I do that, nothing can go wrong on the day. If I know who this person is, if I know what their thoughts are, if I can think their thoughts, then there is no wrong choice today. It's just, we're here. But since in the last 2 weeks, the real life Diane is a very private person. And I would never step into her privacy in any way whatsoever. I think she's extraordinary. She showed up 7 months pregnant to this situation to be a leader. And I think that is the most extraordinary thing I've ever heard. But her daughter is a journalist for a very small paper in New Orleans. And she wrote an article with some quotes from her mom, and they've actually seen the show, and she spoke to her children about it for the first time, about being there. And the article intimates that she had some sort of catharsis from it. And
That's so
I want the whole world to watch 5 days so that it can change things. But for me personally, there's nothing more that I can get out of it than that. I mean, there's nothing better that can come from besides that. So, and I know some of the life care people have been watching, and I'm honored, absolutely honored by that.
Yeah, I can imagine you would be. I know how proud and honored you are, and I'm so impressed with the show. And I just wanted to thank you for a really beautiful raw performance as Diane Robichaux,
Thank you.
and I look forward to seeing more of you on my TV and on my film screens. Thanks to
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.